And so these are some of the contradictions between feminism and Islam. And this is why feminism and Islam are not only incompatible, but they're actually contradictory. And so when Muslims say, or when anybody says, you know, it's okay to call myself a Muslim feminist because it just means women's rights, we see that that's not the case. And when people say that, you know, Islam contains feminism and therefore it's all well and good, we see that that's not the case, because feminism not only is not contained in Islam, but it's actually contradictory to Islam. Thank you so much for listening. Oh, one at that. Okay.
Speaking as a British person and as a feminist, I found this quite offensive. I thought a lot of the things you said are stereotyping feminists, and I also think the title of the talk is quite misleading. So I came here because I thought this was about Islamic or Muslim feminists, you know, Muslim women who are fighting for women's rights in Islamic countries or Muslim countries. I didn't expect it to be such a harsh criticism of Western feminism. And there were lots of things that you said that actually I think are wrong. And one of them that I thought was just a bit strange was when you said that British or Western feminists wouldn't be happy if a woman wore a long skirt. Well, I'm wearing a long skirt.
No, I didn't say not a long skirt. Just to clarify, I said if I wore a long skirt and said this was for a concept of modesty, that's what I was talking about. So it's not what the clothing is, but it's the ideology behind it. So the concept of modesty in of itself, which is what I was explaining, is what feminists would consider to be an affirmation of the patriarchy in itself. So if I choose to dress a certain way, not because I simply want to, but because it's a concept of modesty and because it's about a relationship between men or women, then that's what I was talking about. I wasn't just talking about wearing long skirts in of itself. But just to come back to some of your points, so you said that you found it offensive and wrong. But simply saying it's offensive and wrong isn't actually an intellectual argument. So I brought many arguments, I brought many criticisms, and if you found it offensive, I would like to hear some actual substantive arguments about some of the concepts that I've raised, rather than just saying that you found it offensive, because unfortunately, emotion in of itself is not an intellectual argument. And then you said that you found it, the title misleading because you thought it would be about Muslim women fighting for women's rights, and that's exactly what I've talked about. I've talked about Muslim women fighting for women's rights, but it just happens to not be under the guise of feminism. Rather, we think that Islam is sufficient for this. So on all three of your points, there's my responses. And like I said, if you do have any actual substantive responses to any of the facts that I've mentioned, that would be a better response, because then we can discuss that. But simply to say, you know, one is offended is not really a basis for discussion.
Okay.
Any other questions?
The suffragettes.
Yeah.
So the suffragettes, which is 100 years ago, are women who fought for women's right to vote. Why would they be used as an example of bad feminism?
Well, I explained this. So basically, in today's society, the tactics that they used would be considered unacceptable. Now, historically, when we historicise things that have had, you know, a good, you know, what society considers to be a good outcome, we tend to gloss those things over. In today's society, if any group of society did that, they would be called terrorists. What they did, the methods that they went about. And some historians have also written about this angle, and they actually said that if they hadn't used those tactics, the government or society would have taken them more seriously, because at that time the government couldn't be seen to be yielding to this kind of terrorist activity. They couldn't be seen to give women the vote when they were doing these things, because it would be seen to be yielding to this kind of behaviour in society. And so, you know, if that's what feminists advocate, you know, then that's basically disruption in society and just to get sort of their goals. That is why.
Most groups who are fighting for equality, which is something you don't seem to like the concept of, they don't get equality, they don't get their rights through, not often, through peaceful means. Often there is a disruption to society.
Well, the difference is, The difference is that Islam advocates peaceful means and not destructive means,
The
and
Arab
so
Spring
for
wasn't
us,
a peaceful
no, it's
thing,
not.
right?
It's not a peaceful thing. It's not a
in
peaceful
favour of
thing
it.
either. So let me respond to your point. So you said that I'm not in favour of equality. This is not what I said. I very specifically explained that the liberal concept of equality is very different from the Islamic concept of equality. So let me explain how. In Islam, it's considered, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that all people are as equal as the teeth of a comb. So whether you're male, female, black, white, whatever, you all start on an equal footing. And Islam says that the most virtuous of you, or the best among you, is the one who is most virtuous or righteous or pious. It's not about your gender. It's not about it's not about who. It's not about what you didn't have control over. It's not about your race. It's not about your tribe, because you didn't come into life with any control over these things. But in Islam, equality is something different. Rather, we have a concept of parity. Everybody starts on an equal footing, and then everybody can compete to be in the good things and compete for the better things. And so to say that I'm against equality is a misrepresentation of what I've said. I talked about Islamic equivalents having a different understanding from what the liberal equivalents are, and I also pointed out the flaws in the liberal concept of equality, which if anybody can come back on, that would be great, rather than just saying I don't agree with it and it's something that's great. And like I said, just saying it's great is not actually in of itself an argument.